Sometimes I do wild yeast fermentation. Like this winter, I did my very first keef.
Hello, my name is Ria Windcaller, and I am the producer and cider MC of this weekly podcast, where we speak with makers, cider enthusiasts, and folks within the cider trade from around the world.
Hip, hip, hooray!
Bringing us into episode 432 of Cider Chat was Ancha Gergely, talking about how she has both a wild ferment cider at times, and also she was able to have a keeve happen with her cider. And that's where the yeast just can't get to all the sugar because there's really low nutrients in the juice. So the yeast just kind of gets really sluggish and drops out and creates a brown cap on the top of the cider. And if you're hearing, I just want to take a little pause here. If you're hearing tapping in the background, it's because I have a woodpecker tapping on the outside of my little cider house here right now. It's one of the problems of having board and batten on the outside of your dwelling. The woodpeckers this time of year are looking for insects. I really hope he doesn't or she doesn't find any because that could be a problem. So you might hear some tapping in the background. Getting back to the keeve, it's a real traditional way of making cider. There's spontaneous keeves. You could also use products to create a keeve. And what's nice about a keeve, what is attractive about it, is that it leaves a residual sweetness to that cider without having to add any sugar. So it's the sweetness of the apple remaining behind. And there's a whole bunch of keeve ciders out there. We're seeing a small number of makers in the U.S. with keeve cider. Best known to me is Renaissance Orchards out in Washington State, makes a fantastic keeve. And Chris, who is the maker at Renaissance Orchard, used to sell keeving kits to makers under the business name Cider Supply LLC. And he just posted on Instagram yet another keeve. So for this fall, 2024, he was able to have some keeve cider. So do stay tuned for that because I know he'll be pushing that out there once it's all ready to get bottled. And I recently heard from Steve Garwood of Ragged Hill, which is a Massachusetts-based cidery, that they have a keeve too. And there's a couple more out there, some that taste just not in the platitude, longitude, latitude of where I would want it. Almost tastes a little chemically formed. I won't make any mention of names because that's not going to help anybody. But there are some out there. You could search them in the U.S. if you're based. And really, France and the U.K. have some amazing keeve ciders. And now we know also in Hungary, because that is where Ancha is based out of. She's in the town of Abaliget, thus the name Abaliget Orchard Projects. And she is our featured guest this week. She was on the French cider tour this past September, and we had a sit down, and I was so amazed by this woman. She is a powerhouse. She does have many projects at this orchard. We'll be getting to that episode coming right up, but as always, we have a wee bit of news from out and about in Ciderville. Cider Chat is listener supported, and it's also loved by the woodpeckers. So between the woodpecker trying to eat apart this cider house and you out there in supporting Cider Chat via the donate button at ciderchat.com or becoming a patron, I think we'll be able to keep Cider Chat on the air. But it really relies on you out there. And please, if you have woodpeckers, keep them on your side of the territory and, leave those old trees up in the woods so that they can find insects that aren't on homes and buildings. Oh, my goodness. I'm going to have to go out and chase that out. But I first want to get to something that is happening right now out in Colorado. When I talk about patrons of Cider Chat, one that always comes to mind is Esoterra Cider Works. And they have recently moved. They're based in the Four Corners region of Colorado, but they've just recently moved from Dolores into Durango because they have a project called the Arboretum. And that means that they're doing both cider and wine. And they really need some community support. They have a campaign happening right now. I'm going to have links in the show notes to that. And also want to encourage you to follow them on Instagram at esoterra_Durango. Really easy. There'll be links in the show notes to that, or just look in the search bar on Instagram, Esoterra Ciderworks. There you'll be able to find a link to the campaign, but of course it'll be at ciderchat.com for this here episode number 432. We're going to hear next from Elizabeth, who's one of the founders of Esoterra, and a little bit about her encouragement for you out there in Ciderville to join their campaign to help bring the Arboretum into fruition, and of course, as always, to help keep cider going up around the world.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth, and I'm one of the co-founders of Esoterra. We are really excited to bring a huge new endeavor to our region. Esoterra is planning the Arboretum. The Arboretum is a conservation orchard and cutting-edge vineyard just 15 minutes south of Durango's Main Street. We're really excited about it, and we want you, our community, to be excited about it too. So we've relaunched our Indiegogo campaign with a variety of new perks in order for you, our community, to be just as thrilled as we are. So, choose a day of winemaking with our internationally renowned winemakers, or name a heritage apple tree after someone you love. But in the end, come along with us and be part of it, because we at Esoterra love you, our community, and we want you to be a part of it just as much as we are. So thank you very much, and we hope to see you soon.
Go to the show notes for this here episode 432 of Cider Chat, or better yet, go to the Cider Going Up campaign page at ciderchat.com, and there you will find a list of all the commercial makers and folks in the cider industry who are helping to support Cider Chat as patrons of this podcast. And one of those longtime patrons is Esoterra Ciderworks. I have yet to record an episode with Jared or Elizabeth, any of the folks there at Esoterra, and yet they keep on supporting this podcast and have for many years now, like around the pandemic time, I think they joined up. So that's a couple of years, which really speaks volumes of who they are as community organizers and just that belief that together we are stronger. So thanks again to Elizabeth and everyone there at Esoterra. We adore you here at Cider Chat Central. We hope you don't have any woodpeckers problems. I think it's finally left. And thanks to all the fine patrons who support this podcast each and every month via the Cider Chat Patreon page or by hitting the donate button at ciderchat.com.
Walk into the orchards.
Up next is our featured conversation with Ancha Gergely. We began this conversation having a recording, a sit-down at Mount St. Michel. We went into our coach, which is a very large, like 55-passenger bus that we had. And luckily, the engine was off. Everyone was inside or at the Mont hanging out. And she and I tucked away and had a little sit-down at one of the tables in the back, opened up a bottle of her cider that had been conditioning in a oak barrel, a whiskey barrel. She's going to be talking about that. And we were able to get into the conversation. That particular cider, you'll be hearing us say, was a little chilled. So we went to dinner, we let it warm up, and then met the next morning and had a little bit more of that whiskey cider, because what's better in the morning than some of that cider? And wow, what a totally different profile. And continued on with the conversation, which leads me now to remind you to grab a glass and join this cider chat with Ancha Gergely of Abaliget Orchard Projects, based in Abaliget in the country of Hungary.
I used to live in England, and we always had horses. So living in England, I used to collect apples from my horses, and also we went to the pub and drank cider. And then when we decided to move back to Hungary, we still had the horses, still had the collection of the apples, but there wasn't any proper cider there, so I had to make my own. One year I collected too many nice ones, so I made apple juice. And from apple juice, it's only just one step to cider, really.
I kind of figured it was England because you said a proper
cider, which is something you kind of hear from,
Yes.
the UK in that way. What can you tell us about Hungary?
Hungary is a small country in the middle of Europe. It's got lots of apples, commercial apples for probably supermarkets and apple juice production maybe, but there's no cider history or tradition as such. And when I started, I then somehow, well, through the internet, realized that there are some like-minded people. So we now have a Cider Association of Hungary, which has a Hungarian name.
I want to hear it.
Okay, it's Magyar Cider Egyesület and Magyar Cider Egyesület. Magyar, which means Hungarian.
Okay.
Cider is okay.
Cider.
Yeah, Egyesület is association or something like that. And it's 6 of us that formed this cider association last year.
Just last year, so we're
Yes.
talking 2023.
Yes.
My goodness, congratulations for that. That's
Thank you.
huge. 6 makers. Are they all commercial or is
4 of them.
4 of them? Are they moving towards a commercial operation?
Well, I'm one of them who's not quite commercial yet, but I'm working on that.
Is that pretty involved?
So basically, I have all my health and safety and the environmental and everything else. It's now I just have to register with the tax people, and then I'll be legal to sell, which hopefully will happen from November onwards.
November of 2024.
Or maybe
right.
December.
The actual name of the cidery is going to be your own name, not Abaliget, which is the name of the town.
I called it Abaliget Orchard Projects, mainly for the initials of the 3 words, because I'm also a photographer, which you probably don't know.
Oh, I didn't know that. No.
Yeah, well, I haven't been practicing recently because I don't have time. But that's my name. That's Ancha Gergely Photography, and I have my logo for that. And I just wanted to have the same image on the other side of the business card for the cider, which is, I mean, it's not just the cider, it's everything together. It was important for me to have the same letters and the same kind of image. And my husband came up with this name, Abaliget Orchard Projects, because it's a garden or a farm, or it's the tree nursery, it's the orchard, the animals, the possibility to take photos of wild animals and birds and stuff. Anything really
cool.
And the cidery.
Yeah, from photographer to commercial maker. Are you planning to do a certain quantity every year? Like, what is the business plan?
Yeah, I have a plan. Hopefully I can stick to it. Well, initially, before I decided to go on this cider journey, I only wanted to plant 10 apple trees. But because I was walking around the countryside looking for one particular apple variety and taste, I kept finding new, different apples which were, the trees were old or they were neglected. So I kept grafting, and then suddenly I had 100 grafts, and then my husband came home with a lot of graft wood of English cider apple varieties. So that's when I established the tree nursery.
My goodness, is your husband English?
No, he's Hungarian.
Hungarian too. But
he's working in the UK as a dentist.
Okay.
So he's only home for 1 week, a month, or sometimes 2.
Yeah. But coming home to some good cider and
yes.
And Ciderville's not with us sitting here right now, but the little bit that I know about Ancha, I really respect you. I could tell that you're full in on this, and you're just a joy to be around. The entire tour is super stoked that you're here.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you started this, passion project, right? You're a gardener, you're a farmer, you have animals. You're kind of maintaining the whole ship while he's in the UK. Tell us about your orchard. Were your apples informed by the UK apples, or are you using native apples to the region? So
I really started grafting in 2018, and that was when I collected all those, I call them saved varieties or local saved varieties, because even though I don't know the names of them, or some of them are roadside seedlings, I still grafted them. So that was the first year. And then 2019 was when he came home with the bunch of graft wood. So then I grafted about 400 trees, clay fruit trees.
Oh, okay.
So 150 varieties of apples and probably about 20 varieties of pears and 4 each. So I don't know, do the math, but
Wow, that sounds like quite a bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
So and the pears, are they
Perry pears.
They're Perry pears.
Yeah, UK Perry pears.
UK Perry pears.
So this was what I grafted in 2019, and then I planted them that autumn, and then the next autumn. So now I have 1 hectare full of the local varieties, the cider apple varieties. I mean, saying cider apple varieties, they also contain your usual and less usual UK eating and cooking varieties as well, and the 20 pear varieties and a few others.
20 Perry pear varieties.
Yes.
All like known in the UK.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what are the Hungarian varieties of apples?
There are some really common ones, and even though they are common, not many people remember them because they are conditioned to buy apples from the market and from the supermarkets. So these are old names like húsvéti rozmaring, which is an apple which keeps until Easter, and apparently, I can't smell that, but apparently it resembles the smell of rosemary. So it's called Easter rosemary, and it keeps until next Easter.
That's a long time.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that sounds pretty cool.
So that's pretty common, but not many people remember it.
Huh.
And-
It sounds like the culture in Hungary is not geared towards apples in the same way that we see in other countries. Or is
It's
that
coming
true?
back.
It's coming back.
Yes,
Okay.
there are more and more people interested in low food miles and local produce and old varieties mainly because they probably don't require that much looking after as the new ones.
Sure. Yeah. Is it typical for a family there to have an apple tree in their yard?
Yes.
It is.
Yes.
For eating and baking,
Yes, and
but not
compost.
cider making.
No.
So let's go there a little bit, because you said 6 makers in the country.
There probably are a few more, but they haven't looked us up, or we haven't met them in time to be included. But everyone is welcome. All the new makers who want to join, they can join this association, because the idea is to start a conversation with the, I don't know, government, whoever is in charge, so that we'll have a cider category in the drinks category.
My goodness, it's just
That's
exciting to hear this. It really is. And is there a president of the association? Is that how that's working?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, he's actually an English guy,
Okay.
but living in Hungary.
All right.
No, actually, yes, he is. Is he? Or maybe it's his wife, because
Okay.
he couldn't be because he's not Hungarian. I'm not quite sure about that. But anyway,
if the association is kind of writing the script that you have to be Hungarian to be the president, that sounds like a pretty.
It's not the association. It's the legal
legal.
of Hungary.
And they manage associations to that degree.
Yeah, you have to comply with all sorts of
Oh, my
silly and
goodness.
ridiculous rules.
Well, in some ways that's kind of endearing, because everybody have to deal with silly, ridiculous rules in every country. But we learn how to jump through these hoops. It is what it is. Is there a history of cider making in the culture, in the communities? I mean, you said there's an apple tree, but
Cider making, not so much. My mom and the older generation told me that there used to be an apple wine which was really cheap and really horrible, and that was just to tie them over, and that apparently wasn't really nice. But I can't find anything on the internet. But one of the members of the association, he's really into researching his local region, and he said that because he's down near the Croatian border, and he said that down there used to be like a traveling press, and they were pressing apples and apparently fermenting as well. But don't know much about that yet.
Interesting. Well, sometimes when one person does it, then the history starts revealing itself, right?
Yeah, but that's his passion project to research that.
Okay.
But it wasn't, I don't think it was cider as such. It was probably apple wine.
Could you describe a little bit about what it looks like where you live? Is it hilly? Is it flat?
Yes. No, it's hilly.
Hilly.
So basically, it's in the southwest of Hungary, and I don't know if you are familiar with the Villány wine region. So there is the fifth biggest city in Hungary is Pécs, and Pécs is situated on the south slopes of the Mácsák Hills, but we are on the other side, on the north side, so we don't get the Mediterranean climate, and we don't get as much rain because the hill kind of directs it elsewhere. So we are on the north side of this hill, but still a really steep, south-sloping hillside.
But good for growing apples.
Yes, it's a bit hot.
A bit hard because if it's a steep slope,
Yes,
your orchard's on a hill.
Yes.
Is that true?
It's very steep, so 30 degrees probably.
Oh my goodness.
Not everywhere. And so it gets full sun, so I have to be really careful, and I had to water my little trees for a year, and also this year once, just to keep them alive because we didn't have any rain for 2 months.
And you said these were grafted, so what kind of rootstock were you using?
Okay, I've got a system where I graft onto wild seedling as well as MM106. And the way I planted them, I planted the wild seedling apple trees and pear trees 8 meters apart. And then I planted the MM106s around. So the idea is that now I have an orchard where everything is 4 by 4 meters. And then in like 30 to 40 years, the medium dwarf trees can be taken out because the other ones will be big enough or too big. And then this way, in about 40 years' time, I will have like a traditional standard English orchard.
But could we call it like a Hungarian?
Yeah, we can call it a Hungarian. It's the same thing
yeah.
anyway. So
Yeah, right.
hopefully I'll have huge trees, 8 meters apart, lovely and big, and sheep and horses grazing underneath.
Perfect.
That's the idea, because I don't want to cut grass all the time.
I'm just trying to wrap my head around this because it's so trippy to kind of hear like this beginning of a new cider culture in your region. It's really magnificent. Are there many orchards in Hungary?
Yes, but they are mostly in the northeast.
Okay.
So traditionally, that's really the apple growing area. But where I am, there are lots of apple trees in gardens and on roadsides. So that's why I was brave enough to plant all these trees, because my mom said, if you want to plant a kind of tree, you have to look around. If there are many, you're fine. If there are none, don't bother, basically. But apple trees they grow everywhere.
Yes, they can. Stylistically, for your ciders, are you going to be doing native yeast, or are you going to add a yeast culture to the juice? Like, what's your approach? Like the setup of the cidery? Give us an idea there.
Okay, can I start like with my experimental year? I call it the
Please.
2019. So the first cider I made was in 2018, and it was like a 25-liter batch, and it was a mixture of really old heritage varieties from really old trees, neglected trees. So it's a big mixture of really nice tasting apples. And then I sent the cider off to Bath and West. I'm very proud of this, in England, and I got a silver for it.
That's pretty amazing.
Yes.
Yeah. For a new up-and-coming cider maker like yourself, that must be a good...
So that was really good. And then my husband said, oh, it's beginner's luck. So I've been proving him wrong ever since.
Oh, good. Well, I have tasted some of your cider, as we do here on the cider tour, and in the midst of like all these French ciders. And the perry that we had earlier today, that was a sample perry, as you said. It was really bright, which was kind of a nice change from all the French ciders, because they have more of the tannic structure there. And the fact that you're able to work with the perry as such, so that it didn't go towards that very acidic end of the scale, the dealing with the acid, really is kudos to you. In that case, you were using a champagne yeast. Is that kind of like, what's the idea here?
Well, in 2019, I made a lot of different little batches, and I've been experimenting with different apples and different yeast. But then I couldn't really draw a conclusion because there were too many variables. So from 2021 onwards, I decided to use the champagne yeast, the Lalvin EC 1118, and ferment all different varieties separately in order to get a feel for the different apples. But sometimes I do a wild yeast fermentation. Like this winter, I did my very first Kiev. So that was...
Wow.
Yes.
Congratulations. Was that just planned or unplanned?
No, I planned it.
You
yes,
planned it
yes,
too?
yes.
Wow, that's even more bravo.
Yeah, I got the kit and everything, and I managed to do a proper Kiev. It was a really nice brown head. But then, in the end, I wasn't brave enough to, because it was too hot, I wasn't brave enough to bottle the cider. It was a cider, wild apple cider. I put it into bottle and have it as a dry pet nut cider. It didn't retain any of the sweetness.
But still that you got the brown cap.
Oh yeah, it was beautiful.
That's amazing. And you said you were able to get a kit. Where did the kit come from?
The UK.
The UK? Okay,
Yes.
yeah, because that's harder. The person doing that cider supply, Renaissance Orchard, isn't doing that anymore. So yeah. Well,
but it was the same kit, I think. It's Vigo.
Fantastic. You're working some with barrels.
Yeah, well, the barrels is a new thing. So I have 4 stainless steel tanks and 3 or 4 plastic ones. So before I was doing all my fermentations in like 50-liter demijohns, but now that's too much work, to do all the little ones. So now the batches are going to have to be somehow either 200 or 300-liter batches or blends. And that way I can keep it kind of more simple. But then, I mean, knowing myself, I'm going to do some experimental batches in little demijohns again. But that's the idea. To fill up those, so the final volume mustn't be more than 2,000 or maybe 2,500 liters. But then I got a few barrels.
And then you got a few barrels.
Only 3.
Only 3? Okay, 3
Well, one
big
is
ones.
a bourbon barrel, that's a 200-liter one.
Okay.
One is a Speyside whiskey barrel, that's a 125-liter one. And one is a Tokaj Asu barrel from the Tokaj wine region of Hungary, that's 136-liter.
Well, talk about just diving in. It's so impressive that you just go head first and with joy. And that's...
Well, I had a few failures along the way. It's just you don't talk about it that much. All the funky stuff and the...
Yeah, but, that could have stopped some other people. But you're, like, just forging straight away, and I think that's really commendable.
You learn from your mistakes. I think that's...
So you have these different barrels. You also ferment. You have the plastic. You have the stainless. And you're going to be having an on-site tasting room. Is that the idea eventually?
Yes, eventually.
Okay. So a year from the time of opening, maybe?
Well, I'll have the tasting room by then.
Okay.
But the permit I'm going to get is I won't be able to sell open bottles or glasses. I'll be able to sell bottles, closed bottles, and then whoever buys them can walk out. And then afterwards, they are very welcome to sit down in the orchard and do whatever.
Okay.
But the idea is, yes, to have it on the premises, enjoying the orchard and everything. But it's just the legalities again.
Oh my goodness! It sounds like maybe the government doesn't really know how to deal with cider. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay.
At the moment,
not yet.
It's like either fruit wine, which is not quite because this is not wine,
right?
Or other alcoholic drink, which is like your alcopops and all the, I don't know how to say it nicely. All the
alcopops is a good way to say it.
Yeah.
Now this bottle here that you have, it's a wine bottle. It's a cork. It's still.
Yes, it is.
Is your style going to be still, or are you going to have some sparkling?
No, mainly I would like to do champagne style, or actually champagne method cider.
Wow.
either pet net or the full method traditional.
A cork and cage.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, that's the idea. So I've got all the
The mechanisms for doing that,
Yes.
the tools needed.
Yeah.
Is anyone else in the country doing that?
Yes, probably half of the producers are going for this because this is the high-end.
Makes me so
Good
happy to
stuff.
hear this. Yeah, the high-end good stuff, baby. Bring it on.
But
yeah.
this one is in a wine bottle because this is my whiskey barrel. Yes, it's probably still too cold.
It's a little chilly, but
we can warm it up.
Yeah, warm it up in our glasses and hold it. So tell us, as you're opening a little bit, what do we have here?
Okay.
What kind of apples and whatnot?
Okay, so basically, it's going to be a long story again. Sorry. Okay, so I go around. I don't have any apples myself yet because my orchard is young. It's only 5 years old. So the cider I'm making at the moment comes from other people's gardens or roadsides or fields or church gardens and places.
You're foraging.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so when I see an apple tree, I stop and I knock on the door and ask them if they are going to pick the apples or not, especially if the apples are on the ground. So I stopped in the neighboring village. And there was this old lady. She was actually 98 this Monday.
Oh, beautiful.
So anyway, there's this really huge apple tree with yellow apples ripening in October. And then ever since then, probably for the last 5 years, I've been picking it. And I think it's called Cidery, the Hungarian variety. It's big, yellow, flat, and very sweet. There is nothing else to it if you eat it. And then the first year, I was then taking my apples to be pressed by someone else who is a German guy in Hungary, but his helper is Hungarian. So anyway, I left my note for the German guy in English, but the Hungarian guy was making the juicing. I wanted to keep this lot separate, but they pressed it. So I had 50 liters or probably 100 liters of this juice, not pasteurized for apple juice. So I had to make cider with it. And it turned out to be the most beautiful cider. It's lacking a bit of acid, but it's really nice.
And that was with the same yeast? Same yeast?
Yes.
Same yeast, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, actually, this one turns out really nice, whatever you use.
Oh, this particular
apple, yes.
Well, it sounds like the tree just sounds magnificent.
Yes,
yeah.
And it's huge.
Yeah, so it's very old.
It's at least 80 years old, but probably more.
That must be so special for her, huh?
Yes.
Yeah, I bet you that really warms her heart. I love that.
So this Cidery armor went into the barrel in 2021 with some Granny Smiths for acidity with the same yeast. And then it spent almost 1.5 years in the whiskey barrel because I didn't want it to be subtle. This is my favorite probably.
Well, you like whiskey, right?
Yeah, I love peaty, smoky, single malt, and this is a Speyside barrel. So that's why I left it in there for this long, so that the whiskey really comes out. And I like it.
Yeah.
Most people like it. There are some people who don't like it because they don't like whiskey. Would you like to try it?
I would love to try it. Okay. The bottle wasn't so revealing there, but
no, because I chose a really heavy bottle.
Yeah.
I have a few friends who are winemakers, and they said that for this one, I have to put it into a proper, serious red wine bottle in order to be taken seriously.
to elevate its presence on the market. Yeah. How would you say a cheers in a Hungarian cheers?
Egészségedre.
Okay.
Egészségedre.
Egészségedre.
Almost. Egészségedre.
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 You have an extra R in there in the
I
middle.
do? Okay, dang.
Egészségedre.
Egészségedre.
That's it. Egészségedre.
Wow, for a whiskey barrel, really gentle, nice clarity. as Ancha said, it's a little cold, so that's probably going to open up more of the profile of the whiskey. The liquid is a very light yellow amber, very clear. I'm not getting a lot on the nose here.
It's because it's too cold.
It's too cold, so we'll be drinking this.
Yeah, I even put it on the label that probably above 10 to 13 degrees, but even that. So I normally just drink this straight out from the cellar, which is about 15 degrees.
Okay.
So I would treat this more as a red wine than...
And what is the alcohol by volume on this?
It's 10.
10.
The barrel.
So deceiving.
The
Oh my God, it's so smooth.
Yeah.
Really, like smooth as a baby's behind, we say on this one. It's delicious. And I'm excited to see it open up. So when we come back from dinner and try a little bit more, maybe we'll kind of continue that conversation. But wow, well done. I mean, this one is how old?
So it started its life 2022. So I harvested both varieties of apples in 2022, and then went into the barrel at Christmas and came out this Easter.
Really smooth. There's like the barrel oakiness, tannin, a little mouthful.
No, actually, the yellow apples somehow.
The yellow does. You said it was sweet, but it has tannin
when you
too.
eat it, you don't
Okay.
have the tannin, but then suddenly when it turns into cider, it's tannic.
Okay.
Well,
there you go. Yeah.
I haven't had the apples tested yet. It's another plan.
Another piece.
What you're going to hear next is a continuation of our interview with Ancha Gergely of Abaliget Orchard Projects the following day.
The cider has warmed up.
Yes.
Totally different profiles coming out. So it is really nice. There's like a softness of that cider that was really enjoyable. I'm not a big whiskey drinker, but I do enjoy it. And I don't like how it could cut. So when people hear that, they might think, oh, it's cutting. No, it's like really soft. And that's true with all your ciders. They're not going through malolactic fermentation for softness. It's really your technique that you're doing here. Like last night, we arrived at our hotel. We had the quince.
Yes.
So just to kind of repeat things, the whiskey cider was called...
Fürste.
Fürste.
Yes.
I'm saying that correct?
Yes.
What does that mean exactly?
Fürste is a word play. The Fürstefetschke is the swallow, and Fürst means smoke. So, and I like birds, and we have birds on our farm, and that's why I wanted to name it after this swallow called Fürstefetschke, because of the smokiness of the whiskey barrel. That's the kind of the association or the connection.
Smokiness of the whiskey barrel, yeah, exactly, which is a beautiful addition to a cider. Let's skip ahead to your quince cider, which is called quince.
Yes, in Hungarian, very imaginative.
And so, how do you say quince in Hungarian?
Birs.
Birs.
Yeah.
Am I getting that right?
Yes.
Birs. A little sh in there. You have this beautiful artwork. It's a tiny little quince on it. It's not tiny, like minuscule. You could see it. And then it also has your logo, that APG, kind of like in the background behind it. And it pulls you in like John Lennon to that yes up on the wall for Yoko Ono. It's like you see something there, and I imagine on the shelf, it just has this like alluring appeal. And then you see a single quince.
Yes. I'm working together with a local artist called Madarász Gábor, and I asked him to paint me these images of the actual bird. So the Fürstefetschke was the actual bird in the nest on my house. And the birch is the actual birch. I've taken a picture of it and I sent it to him. So he's a painter, a local artist, and he does these paintings for me, especially for the labels. And then my sister puts the label together according to my wishes.
Okay, she's like a graphic designer.
Yes.
And what's her name?
Janka Zöldvölgyi.
A village to make a cidery type of experience.
Yes.
It's a really delightful label. And also what's in the bottle, too. It's just still cider. It's 100% quince.
Yes, I milled the quince.
You do what to the quince?
Milled it, crushed it. Then I let it sit for almost 24 hours.
obviously I washed it first.
Uh-huh.
And then I pressed it just like that. The thing is, people told me I won't be able to do the quince on its own, that I have to mix it with apples. So I thought, oh, no, I'm going to have to try. And I did, and it was beautiful. And it gave 70% of juice.
70% of juice, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
The quince that you use. You didn't cut it up.
I put it through the spiral.
It's a grinder.
Yes,
right? So
grinder.
Ciderville would know, like, it's like a really, kind of like a cone, it's yellow.
Yeah.
And you throw the quince in whole.
Yes, it was a bit hard. I was getting a bit worried. But
Because you heard the machine kind of...
well, it's just, it's a very expensive piece of machinery, so you want to be careful. And quinces are a lot harder than apples.
Yeah.
But it was,
It worked.
It worked.
Okay. And did you wash the fuzz off the quince?
Yes, I did.
Okay,
I did.
Because you just figured...
Well, I've done a bit of research and reading and listened to your episodes on quince, and I just knew that I had to get rid of the little
fuzz.
hairs.
Yeah, the little hairs, yeah. When it went through the spiegel, did it look like juice was starting to ooze from it?
No, it was kind of on the dry side, but it wasn't as dry as some of the pears.
Okay.
And then I put it into 3 tubs and let it sit. It was the beginning of November, quite cold, so it was all right. So I left it like that until the next afternoon.
So only 24 hours?
Yes.
And then you saw that there was some juice maybe kind of oozing at that point?
I didn't really look, to be honest.
You didn't know? So why the 24 hours then?
Because that's when I had time. I wasn't brave enough to leave it any longer. And with the kids and the farm and everything, that's when I had time to press it.
Okay.
So I pressed it then.
Yeah, and
That was how, that was the risk I was going to take.
The type of press that you use, what do you have?
It's a cloth and rack press.
Yeah.
It's an antique Austrian wine press.
Did juice immediately start coming out?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So as you build up your cheeses, it starts dripping, and then when I started pressing, it was beautiful, clear liquid, and the smell was just amazing.
And you're using the champagne yeast with that?
Yes. So after, once it's pressed, I put it into plastic barrel just to have the initial very vigorous fermentation done with champagne yeast, the EC 1118. So depending on whether you have cold conditions or warmer conditions or the pH is not quite right, it still works. So I quite like that one.
Yeah, well,
and it doesn't give any extra. It doesn't influence the taste of the fruit. I find.
Okay.
So anyway, so then I have the juice fermenting. And then once all the foam dies down, then I put it into glass carboys with the airlock, and then they ferment there.
My goodness, okay. Well, what a relief to see that juice coming out of those hard rock quinces. That must be a moment of, all that work that you have leading up to that point. I mean, every stage of cider making is like that, right?
Yes.
Are the apples going to make it through the season? Are they going to have like a nice flavor profile? Are they going to grind up, or in this case a quince, grind up even, and then will I get juice from this, baseball? It's kind of crazy. Is there anything now in making the quince that you might do differently, or how you want to change that, put a sparkle to it? Or are you looking at
Yes, I definitely wanted to put a sparkle to it, so I bottled it just before I finished fermentation, but I might have left it for too long because not too many bubbles have developed. I would have liked a bit more bubbles. So next year I'm going to put the quince into the champagne bottles a bit earlier.
When you say that, were you trying to get like a pet nap?
Yes.
Okay,
definitely.
so when you say you waited too long, it had really dried out, and that's what you're going to experience.
Yes. So I keep track of the specific gravity, and that's how
it dropped.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that champagne yeast will kind of eat right through. Yeah. No addition of sulfites or anything like that?
I sprayed a bit of sulfites on the pomace when I left it there for the one day to macerate, because I'm kind of nervous about acetic acid. So I sprayed it with a bit of sulfur solution.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You have kind of an assortment of different ciders that you're working with.
Well, the thing is, the reason I've been using this particular champagne is because all the environmental factors, I wanted it to be the same. So I pressed all the different varieties separately, be it at 100 kilos or 300 or just 5, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Then I ferment them all the same with the same yeast, and this way I'm hoping to get a feel for the apple varieties, what they can give to the cider. Some of them work by themselves, some of them don't. I think the nicest blend is probably the biggest blend with all the different varieties in it. But then I also put together some small, like 2 or 3 varieties, or just one single variety. So I'm still trying to work out what the range will be, trying to simplify it really, because I really like the single varieties, but it's really a lot of work and a lot of labels and a lot of everything.
And that's more work to get the labeling process too.
Yeah.
There's a department in the government that oversees that, or is it in the town, or do you know?
Actually, with the cider, because we don't really have cider legislation, I don't know if I know they check how big your font is, and there are certain elements. The font, how big your letters are. So whether it's
interesting, just the letters on your label.
Yeah. And also it has to contain the alcohol, my name, where it was, produced, and I think that's about it. So there are certain elements that you have to have on the label.
So you could put vintage 2024 on it.
Yes, I think so.
That's no problem. And do they tax you based upon the amount of alcohol?
Yes.
They do. So what's the threshold where it changes?
I think it changes at 10%. That's what I was told.
Wow. Oh, everybody listening who's a commercial maker outright, it's like jealous. And because that just gives you like a whole broad reach to be able to produce.
And also it's depending on whether it's bubbly or not.
So a little higher tax if it's bubbly?
Yes.
Okay.
Above 3 bars.
All right.
That's what I was told last week.
Yeah, well, you're really the pioneers for Hungary.
Yes, the 6 of us, yes.
Yeah, well, how amazing. What an exciting time.
Yeah, it is just beginning in Hungary. So we are kind of at the head of the curve, even before. Yeah.
Do you work with any of the bordering countries at all, or is it pretty much just in the country? Does the country export apples?
Yes,
yeah. But that's you're all separate from that. You're just on cider.
To be honest, no. Commercial apples I'm not really interested in, so I tend not to know. I'm into this old varieties.
Yeah, you're just saying right there.
Yes.
And it sounds like you got them. I mean, you have quite a few. You've been grafting, really moving it forward. Do you have a 5-year plan?
Yes, I do. I think not a 5-year one. I had a plan before I started. So the idea was that because I'm doing it on my own and I don't have much space, I don't want to make the cider too big. And also because I like it, I don't want to turn it into a job as such.
Yeah.
I want to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I want to do the things that I want to do rather than what the customers want me to do. Which is, I don't know.
Yeah, that's not easy to do because everybody gets into it saying, I want to make the cider that I enjoy. And then you're kind of pushed up against the wall to actually sell it.
So for this reason, I decided, and also because I'm really into apples and pears and grafting and saving the varieties, the local varieties, that's why I decided that probably the tree nursery would be a much better idea to have as the money making or the earning side. So I have a collection of varieties, probably about 600 varieties of different apples, pears, sour cherries, medlars, plums, yes. So probably 400 varieties of apples from the UK, France, Austria, Germany, some American as well. and the old Hungarian local varieties.
Yeah, well, those are kind of the gems, aren't they?
Yes. My plan was, and still is, to supply the future cider makers of Hungary with trees. And then if the cider makers don't have space for trees, then I can sell them apples maybe, so they can do the crushing and pressing and everything. If they don't want to do that, then I can sell them pressed juice especially for cider.
Yeah, the demand is there.
And if people don't want to do anything, then they can come and have some cider.
That's a great 5-year plan. It gives you so many options depending upon what's happening in the world, and you got a lot of bases covered there.
Well, I just wanted it to be easy for people to get into this cider game, you know, because it's not really difficult, is it? If you have a source where you can get apples from, juice from, some education from, then it's easy.
I feel honored to have you on the tour and to witness history in the making for the Hungarian cider culture. It's moments like this that is like pinch me. You're providing a service here, and that's super cool. And you're making great products.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you very much for organizing the Totally French Cider Tours, because it's really wonderful.
My pleasure, Ancha.
It's history in the making, happening everywhere around the globe for cider right now, and specifically in the country of Hungary. How cool it is to hear what is happening right now in 2024. Imagine in 5 years. I mean, the cider that Ancha's making was great. I can only imagine what a little bit more time, a little bit bigger community around her, and the scene as it grows is going to be like in just a couple of years' time. She did let me know that she has the paperwork ready to roll for the licensing of her cidery, so it's just a matter of time. This woman is a powerhouse and someone that you out there in Ciderville want to know about. And you can follow along with everything they're doing. Go to the show notes for this here episode 432 of Cider Chat and find links so that you too can follow Abaliget Garden Projects.
Smelling all the blossoms.
I really love that story about the 98-year young woman who had that apple tree out in front of her home. I imagine that's going to be a lot of us out there in Ciderville in the years to come, and maybe happening right now, where there'll be a special tree that you just adore, and you're hoping for someone like Ancha to come along, knock on the door, and just adore your tree as much as you do. That kind of makes the world go round, really warms my heart. If you'd like to read a couple reviews about her ciders, you could go to our friend at Cider Explorer. This is Natalia. She is based in Germany, and she reviews a lot of different ciders on that side of the pond, if you will, maybe a little bit further. And she did a whole review of Abaliget Garden Project ciders and a Perry. I don't think she had all the ciders. She had a few of the ciders that I was tasting with Ancha. But it's cool to read. There'll be a link in the show notes, again, to this here episode 432 of Cider Chat. And we're making mention of that because it's been really kind how Cider Explorer has been sharing all the episodes of Cider Chat each week when we put it out there. And that helps discovery on both ends. We like using the hashtag #XPromoteCider. We also saw that Marcel, our friend at De Hanener, which is a Netherlands-based cidery, did that for the last episode. Let's keep on rising the tide together so we could float all our boats out to Ciderville worldwide. Just use that hashtag #XPromoteCider and cross-promote, and we will put you on the list to make mention of our year-end episode coming up, all on cross-promotion. And with that, I leave you here. This is Ria Windcaller signing off for now. Looking forward to seeing you in Ciderville.
We like cider, we like ponds, we love orchards and having fun. There is a reason. There is a reason why we do it like this. Oh yes, there is. There is a reason why we do it like this. Oh yes, there is. There is a reason why we drink it like this. Oh yes, there is. There is a reason. We like walking through the orchards, dancing in the streets, smelling all the blossoms, kicking up our feet. We like cider, we like palms, we like orchards, having some fun. There is a reason why we do it like this.
Oh, yes, there is.
There is a reason why we do it like this.
Oh, yes, there is.
There is a reason why we drink it like this.
Oh, yes, there is.
There is a reason. We like walking through the orchards, dancing in the streets, smelling all the blossoms, kicking up our feet.
Oh, yeah.
We like cider.
Oh, yes, we do.
We like palms.
Oh, yes, we do.
We love orchards, having some fun. There is a reason why we do it like this.
Ba-da-da-dum.
There's a reason why we do it like this.
Ba-da-da-dum.
There is a reason why we drink it like this.
Ba-da-da-dum.
Ba-da-da-dum. We like walking down the orchards, dancing in the streets, smelling all the blossoms, kicking up our feet.
Oh, yeah.
We like cider.
Ba-da-da-dum.
We like palms.
Oh, yes, we do.
We like orchards, having some fun.
Yeehaw!